Good evening, everyone. Hopefully, you're having a wonderful day so far. I got a good one for you today. So, Mark Carney finally was sworn in as Canada's 24th Prime Minister today. Well, at least we got rid of that Justin Trudeau, but now we have a whole nother barrel of apples to deal with here. So, first, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And with no further ado, let's get into this. So this is Mark Carney's first speech to Canadians, and we get this from CPAC.
It is my honor to respond to the Governor General's request that I form a government. And it's a solemn duty to serve as Prime Minister at this time of great consequence for our country. The ceremony we just witnessed reflects the wonder of a country built on the bedrock of three peoples: Indigenous, French, and British. The opening and closing prayers evoke the original stewards of this land. They remind us of the deep roots from which we grow and underscore the values to which we aspire. The office of the Governor-General links us through the Crown and across time to Canada's proud British heritage. Et la cérémonie s'est déroulée.
Now, the ceremony took place in both official languages. Our bilingual identity makes us unique, and the French language enriches our culture.
On these foundations, Canadians have built a dynamic nation that celebrates its diversity, that cares for the vulnerable in society, and that always strives for a better tomorrow. Ce nouveau cabinet
This new cabinet is fully aware of our responsibilities and our duties to strengthen the foundation of our nation and to make, during this crisis, and to build a better Canada.
Looking in the background there, his cabinet doesn't look like a new cabinet. It just looks like Justin Trudeau's cabinet. The interesting thing here, sure, he cut a bunch of people and a bunch of bloat from the previous cabinet, but pretty much all he did was slap a new face on the talking head we call Prime Minister, and there you go. Yeah, business as usual.
I have the great pleasure to present to you today this highly qualified team that will be my government and which will defend the values that we cherish so much here in Canada. Our government will change the way we work. It will focus on what is crucial and adopt an approach based on action to deal with the challenges that we currently face.
Canada's new government is changing how we work so we can deliver better results faster to all Canadians. We have new ministers with new ideas, ready to respond to new threats and to seize new opportunities. Canada's new government is focused on the things that matter most to Canadians: growing more higher-paying jobs, improving affordability, and making Canada more secure. Canada's new government will be action-oriented, driven by a smaller but highly experienced team made to meet the moment we are in. Our leaner cabinet will focus on two priorities in particular. First, protecting Canadian workers and their families in the face of unjustified foreign trade actions. And second, growing this great country by putting more money in Canadians' pockets, by ensuring that government spends less so Canada can invest more, by building millions of homes, by making Canada a superpower in both conventional and clean energies, by creating new trade corridors with reliable partners, and by forging one Canadian economy out of 13. We will relentlessly pursue this positive.
Well, if you want to create one economy other than 13, you're going to have to get Quebec on your side for that. Well, and BC. So good luck with that. I mean, it's a good dream. I don't think it's going to happen. No other PM has been able to get it to happen. So, but let me know in the comments down below if you guys know if there has been a prime minister that got all of Canada to kind of cooperate, because there's probably and hopefully a lot more smarter people on here than me. I'm just a guy who reads news on the internet.
Positive agenda, because Canadians know that negativity isn't strength. They know that negativity won't pay the rent or the mortgage. The negativity won't bring down the price of groceries. Negativity won't win a trade war. We know that by building together, we can give ourselves far more than anyone else can take away. Nous sommes maîtres chez nous.
We are masters in our own home. Our country is Canada strong, and our government is united and strong as well. We will get down to work right away with our first cabinet meeting.
Is Canada strong? Our government is united and strong, and we will immediately get to work with our first cabinet meeting as soon as I respond to a few of your questions. Thank you very much.
I gotta say, I do not view our government as strong at all, especially because our cabinet is the same cabinet that we had last time. So we have the same decision makers in power. This is ridiculous. I mean, this is what Mark Carney is. It's just status quo things. Well, at least he hasn't come up with any lies yet, or telling us that he's done something he hasn't done before. So I guess that's a positive.
We will now do a 15-minute question period. One question, one follow-up. Merci.
I received the questions on a trip to Paris and London in a few days. I received an invitation from the President of France to discuss a variety of issues, both economic, commercial, to reinforce those relationships, also issues related to security in Europe, in Canada. Similar discussions will be had with the Prime Minister in the United Kingdom. This is sensible. Security is a priority for this government, reinforcing our security, as is diversifying our trading and commercial relationships. Of course, with both Europe and the United Kingdom, there are many opportunities. And as I said a moment ago in my remarks, there are historic ties. With respect to the President, I don't have plans to go to the United States. I look forward to speaking to him at the appropriate moment. Thank you.
Whoa, wait. Our biggest trade partner that we're having a spat with right now, and you get into power, and the first thing you do, and you don't have a meeting or at least a phone call with President Trump. I don't know if this is stupidity or this can't be. This has to be. They know what they're doing, and I don't know what they're doing. To be completely honest, or Mark Carney's just incompetent, because the first thing you do, the first thing every prime minister does, is get on the phone with the President of the United States. And hey, if the president doesn't get on the phone, you go down there, or you get somebody to go down there for you. This is sort of an important thing, and you're going over to Europe first? Now, I'm not saying that Europe's not important, but our biggest trading partner is the US. Second biggest trading partner is China. Why would you prioritize Europe over the United States?
Mr. Carney, Monsieur Rubio.
Mr. Marco Rubio this morning in Charlevoix repeated what Donald Trump has been saying. He has repeated that Canada, economically speaking, would be better as the 51st state. As Prime Minister of Canada, how would you respond to what the Secretary of State said in Canada? It's amazing. It's mad. It's just outrageous. That's it. Outrageous. Mad.
It's crazy. His point is crazy. That's it.
Question.
Yeah.
Hi, Prime Minister. Tom Perry with CBC. Can I ask you what your plans are for the next few weeks? Are you going to be bringing back the House? Are you going to be calling an early election? And if so, when should Canadians expect to go to the polls?
Well, they certainly should expect to go to the polls before November. Oh,
taking a little bit of a page out of the NDP's playbook.
The news today is behind me. An exceptional group of individuals who are serving Canada, united, focused cabinet, focused on action, focused on the issues for Canadians. We are, as I said a moment ago, we will be going to take some decisions which directly meet some of the objectives I set out in my remarks and we've been discussing. That's the news for today. There will be other news in the coming days with respect to ensuring that we have as strong a mandate that is needed for the time. Thank you.
And when you're in Europe, are you going to be seeking assurances from Canada's allies that this country will never become America's 51st state? And when would it be an appropriate time for you to take that message to the U.S. president?
Well, I've been clear. Personally, I've been clear. The ministers behind me, I think, to an individual, when asked, have been clear that we will never, ever, in any way, shape, or form, be part of the United States. America is not Canada. Look at the ceremony we just had. You could not have had that ceremony. You would not have that ceremony in America. Look at the cabinet behind me. You would not have that cabinet in America. You do not have that cabinet in America. We are a very fundamentally different country. So irrespective of any issues economically, fundamentally to our core, to our identity, c'est une des raisons, is one reason why we have a minister, and I will thank Mr. Guilbeault to be our Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture and bringing in all those aspects and reinforcing them. So before we get to the economics of it, we won't be part of it. And when we get to the economics, then the president is a successful business person and deal maker. We're his largest client in so many industries. As the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Industry, Monsieur Leblanc and Monsieur Champagne have made this point. And clients expect respect and working together in a proper commercial way. So the nature of Canada means we won't. The economics means we shouldn't. And what you will see from this government is focusing on building here at home, building with different partners abroad, and that will reinforce the point. It's good. We're doing it for our own reasons, to be clear, for our own people, for the high-paying jobs. But eventually, the truth will out, and the Americans will understand as well. Thank you.
Our allies, sir, do you want to...
So, wait. Is Guilbeault not the environment minister anymore? But even so, the fact that he's still in cabinet is ridiculous. And I'm starting to see a thing about Mark Carney where he just pushes off questions that he doesn't want to answer. He's very a top-down businessman. He's that's not what our topic is today, so we're not talking about it. We'll talk about that when the topic comes up. And the only time you ever hear that is in the office. So is this how he's going to treat our government right now? It's going to be like he's the boss and we're all the employees. Politics is totally different from in-office jobs. You can't... He is terrible at speeches and boring as heck.
I don't think we need to hear it from nous sommes médecins. We're masters in our own home. We're in charge. You know, we're in charge. It's always nice when people say nice things about you, but we don't need it. We're not seeking it. What the discussions I will have on behalf of the government in Paris and in London will relate to opportunities that both our countries share, as well as our shared history.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, Valérie Gamache de Radio-Canada, enchantée.
Radio-Canada.
Vous n'avez pas de ministre
Pleased to meet you.
vient de
You don't have a minister from Alberta. Do you think this is because you intend to run in an Albertan riding yourself? Is that why? Well, you're quite right. I did grow up in Alberta. I launched my campaign in Edmonton. It's not the time now to announce where I intend to run. Next question, please.
I'm complimenting the journalist from Radio-Canada, and I would like to compliment the very existence of Radio-Canada, and I'd like to reinforce that my government would be reinforcing. It goes back to Canadian identity, culture. This is away from the news, but the broader sense. So I'll finish the answer. I compliment the question. She's recognizing that I grew up in Alberta. I launched my campaign in Alberta. I'm just reinforcing today. Today, the story is behind me, and there will be more news because those behind me will be taking some important decisions this afternoon.
See, he's doing the, it's not about not having any minister. I'm not telling you where I'm running. I don't want to give out any hints. It's not about it. Let's bring it back and talk about the people behind me. This is exactly what a corporate CEO would do to his employees. Now, I find it interesting how the media afterwards, coming off of the question about traveling to France and Britain, why they didn't ask him, oh, are you going to talk about supply management in London with the UK Prime Minister? Because that is a massive issue we were having with our trade deal with the UK, was they were trying to access Canadian goods with a free trade agreement, but we wouldn't allow free trade with our dairy and I think our poultry as well. We were trying to do the same thing as we do to the States, where we tariff it because of our supply management system. So then the UK was like, okay, we're just not going to trade with you anymore. That would have been a perfect question for Mark Carney, especially since he's prioritizing Europe.
Mr. Carney, since the start of your speech, you've mentioned official languages 3 times, but official languages is not part of Mr. Guilbeault's title, and you've replaced heritage by Canadian identity. Is that a message for Quebec? No. What we're trying to do is to strengthen our identity. The French language is essential to our Canadian identity. Mr. Guilbeault has been an exceptional minister, but he now has the responsibility for official languages. But the question of a Canadian identity is much broader than just our official languages. It's much broader than our heritage. We have to strengthen Canadian identity. We're still building it, and that includes, and this is key, I think, the Canadian identity includes nature. And one of Mr. Guilbeault's responsibilities is to bring our responsibilities together as it pertains to oceans, biodiversity, nature, and to protect them and to promote them as well.
Prime Minister Carney first.
Huh? The question was, are you gonna... Well, the question was a stupid question to begin with. Language is a major part of your identity. Losing one is losing a piece of the other. So, like I said, the question was stupid. But Carney then afterwards swung into something about biodiversity. I guess he was trying to connect Canada's identity with the environment. I don't know. That was weird.
First off, congratulations.
Thank you.
Second, David Baxter, Canadian Press. April 1st is fast approaching, the date the consumer carbon tax is set to increase once again. You've talked about getting rid of it. How are you going to do it in the next 2 weeks?
Your question, how are we going to do it by the end of the day? That's a great question, and we'll come right back to you on that following the cabinet meeting.
In that order?
That's you have a better follow-up than that.
Oh, there is a better follow-up, but just to get clarification, you are going to do it
Then
by
that would be
cabinet
three
order.
questions, and everyone else will get angry.
There we go. We'll go back to it. So, you've talked about Trump needing to show Canada respect.
President Trump.
President
yes.
Trump, yes, President Trump needing to show Canada respect. You said that again just now. Are you not going to speak with President Trump until he cuts out this 51st state talk?
No. I look forward to speaking with President Trump. Just to be clear, we respect the United States. We respect President Trump. President Trump has put some very important issues at the top of his agenda. We understand his agenda. We understand the importance of addressing the scourge of fentanyl, which is a challenge here in Canada as well as the United States. And I would say that the measures that have been put in place in recent weeks in Canada and Mexico, also the United States, means that we are making tremendous progress. I'll speak specifically for Canada against fentanyl. We understand the importance President Trump places on American workers and American jobs. We want him and his administration to understand the importance we put on Canadian workers and Canadian jobs. And we will look for avenues to work together so that both objectives are met in terms of both our great economies, just as we are doing, and the people behind me have led this, just as we are doing with respect to the scourge of fentanyl. Thank you.
Prochaine question. Next.
So the interesting part about Donald Trump's tariffs right now, there's a lot of industry and businesses going back to the United States and building up their factories in the United States now, because they're starting to realize that Donald Trump's not going to stop with this. What he's doing is he's accomplishing what he's setting up to do. He's bringing jobs back to America by using these tariffs. So I can't see him stopping with this. Now, like long term, I think it's going to be good for the States, but short term, it's going to be rough. And I think our government is going to use that as a way to try and, or at least the liberals are going to use that as a way to try and prop themselves up and say how dumb Donald Trump is and how stupid all these tariffs were. And yet we do the exact same thing. We do the exact same thing with our supply management and our dairy cartel that we have here. We tariff the states to keep the price and everything of milk and cheese and poultry up here, or at least steady. And Donald Trump's just trying to do that to pretty much everything in the United States. And on the other thing that I just noticed when the interviewer from the Canadian Press, when he came out and asked his question, he started with Trump, not President Trump. And Mark Carney went and stopped him and said, say President Trump. He didn't do that at the beginning when the interviewer asked a similar question in French. She started and asked if Trump does this. Mark Carney didn't stop her and tell her in French to say President Trump. So I think maybe I'm looking a little bit too deep into it, but this might be kind of a showing of how bad Mark Carney's French is he doesn't realize some of these subtleties in French, but he notices it in English. I wasn't going to point this out, but since Carney made a big deal out of it, I'm going to make a big deal out of it too.
Next one.
Hi, Prime Minister Carney. I'm Jillian Piper with Global News. I understand that your assets have been put into a blind trust. I wanted to ask you, what is the value of the assets and where did they come from? How can Canadians know that there's no conflict of interest if they don't know where the assets come from?
That's an odd question, or odd way of framing it. The assets are in a blind trust. So, and can I point out that for those who don't follow this, I have 6 months to put, or 120 days to put the assets in a blind trust. I already have put the assets in a blind trust. And once assets are in a blind trust, you don't know that by definition, you don't know the assets because the trustees take over the responsibility. I would like to reassure you that the assets that I have were earned through employment. Employment income, employment as a public servant, and employment in the private sector. And I would note as well that employment in the private sector is something that the Leader of the Opposition has never experienced. And I would point as well that complying or meeting standards expected of a leader of a party, let alone a prime minister, is something that the Leader of Opposition has not respected either, and I'm speaking directly with respect to his refusal, still at a time of great crisis, to get his security clearance, something I managed to do in 2 weeks.
Again, the security clearance thing. Well, he's going to get his security clearance when he's prime minister. He doesn't need it right now because he's only leader of the opposition. He's got no power to do anything. And if he sees any restricted material, he can't talk about it and he can't act on it. So what's the point of getting your security clearance? Now, the reason why that question was a perfect question about, oh, what were your investments? What businesses were you in? Because we were kind of screwed over by a previous prime minister called Justin Trudeau, who had a lot of friendly ties with SNC-Lavalin, some random friends out in their private islands that he got gifts from, and the whole Arrive scam scandal thing. I don't think that it was really Justin Trudeau himself. I think that was more everyone in government. But as you can see, there was a lot of people that Justin Trudeau had friends with and prior dealings with that were kind of favored, and we just want to know, who are you going to favor? That's it, because nobody knows you, Mark Carney, and you're not really answering questions from other media, so it's kind of hard to get to know you when you won't answer our questions.
From the West, what's your message to Western Canada?
So the numbers in the cabinet are all necessarily smaller because the cabinet is much smaller, and the cabinet is much smaller because it's focused.
The numbers of the cabinet are smaller. It was because the numbers are smaller. Oh, wow, thanks, Captain Obvious.
On the issues that are most important to Canadians. Meeting the moment, and the moment is a moment of crisis. We have very capable, exceptional members from Western Canada in there, as well as deputies from the West. But it's a factor when you reduce things down. And I'm Prime Minister of all of Canada, of course, and I'm from the West. And I would note maybe as well. And this is a challenge I think we have. I'll just make a general point. Let's take an example of Chrystia Freeland. Okay? Exceptional minister, exceptional public service. Chrystia Freeland lives in Toronto. Chrystia Freeland is from the West. Chrystia Freeland is from Alberta. But people get classified in a way that limits the breadth of experience. I could give you many examples of the pan-Canadian nature of this cabinet.
Last question and follow-up. Dernière question et sur la question de suivi.
Ramsey with the Toronto Star. Prime Minister, speaking of your cabinet, the front line of your cabinet and the vast majority of your cabinet were all ministers during Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's time. How does this represent change?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is this first thing, smaller cabinet, more focused on action. Everybody in this cabinet is senior. Everybody in this cabinet is senior, so I don't accept the front line and the implication that there's a front line and another line. The second thing is one of the top issues, of course, is the crisis with respect to the United States and the opportunity with respect to trade diversification. So keeping together those individuals who have been on and now I'm going to use your term, the front line, but the front line in a commercial battle, keeping together those individuals so that we are seamlessly addressing these issues and seizing the opportunities was very important to us, and that's reflected in the cabinet. But of course, it's reflected fundamentally in their capabilities, which are here for the moment.
And on President Trump, what makes you think you personally would be better fit to handle him than Trudeau was, and why do you think he'll have more respect for you than he did for him?
Look, I'm not going to put myself into to represent that President Trump in any way, shape, or form. President Trump and I, though, we share some experiences. I have been in the private sector. I have worked in the real estate sector. I have done large transactions. I have worked with him during his first presidency at the G20, at the G7. I respect what he is looking to accomplish, and we have built a base through the interactions that we've had, including as of yesterday with the meetings of the Minister of Finance, well, I'll say, because their roles have slightly changed, Monsieur Champagne and Monsieur Leblanc, and Premier Ford with the Secretary of Commerce, as well as the meetings that the Minister of Foreign Affairs had with her G7 counterparts, including Secretary Rubio. So we are building that base. But in many respects, part of my experience overlaps with that of the president. We'll both be looking out for our countries, but he knows, and I know from long experience, that we can find mutual solutions that win for both.
Thank you.
Wow, this is just a little bit of nitpicking, but Mark Carney really needs to work with those filler words. That was terrible. The uhs and ums. I do that a ton too, but that was terrible. There was a moment where I couldn't pay attention to what he was talking about because all I heard was and So he's really got to work on that before he goes to the actual federal election. He's going to get wiped. Well, Pierre Poilievre is going to wipe the floor with him either way, but he's just going to look like a rookie in the major leagues. As for him not wanting to take words out of Donald Trump's mouth, what is it? The question was, what makes you better than Trudeau at dealing with Donald Trump? It has nothing to do with what Donald Trump thinks. It just goes to show that there's no difference. Not even Mark Carney could come up with a difference between him and Justin Trudeau with dealing with Donald Trump, which is hilarious. So, hopefully, at least what'll happen is they cut out the carbon tax right away. And I seen some things on the news right before I made this video. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, or fortunately, I couldn't put it into the video, but that'll be in next time, so look forward to that. Hopefully we can get rid of that stupid tax. But what do you think? What do you think about Mark Carney's first performance on the big stage in front of all Canadians? And what do you think about Mark Carney with as PM? Also, let me know if watching Chrystia Freeland bob her head all the time behind Mark Carney as Prime Minister is as entertaining to you as it is to me. Other than that, that's all I have for you today. Have a good Friday.